And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Saturday starts off with some IFR over the northern Bering Sea, up into the Bering Strait there, and a little bit of IFR here, northeastern Bristol Bay, and marginal VFR for the central and southeast Bering Sea, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. VFR, though, for the Adak-Atka area westward to Shemya. Mostly IFR for the southeast coast and some IFR up into western Prince William Sound and the southern Seward Peninsula. Kenai Peninsula. And for the afternoon, a little bit of marginal VFR up on the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, good VFR for the North Slope down across the interior here until you get to the Alaska Range. Lower conditions south of the mountains there with marginal VFR covering all the southwest interior from Norton Sound here all the way down to IFR in Prince William Sound. A lot of IFR here just off the southeast coast and mostly marginal over the inside waters. And for the Sunday morning time frame, IFR for the Panhandle up to Yakutat and a little bit there around Valdez, Cape, and Cordova, with marginal VFR, south central Alaska, north of the Alaska Range VFR, all the way up to the North Slope, and some IFR here over the northeast Bering Sea, north central areas, Nunivak Island down across the Pribilofs. Swath of VFR, Adak and Atka here, more IFR with the next system coming onto the chart there. Edges eastward, not a whole lot, mostly staying south of the western Aleutians there. Still an area of VFR from Atka Island to Unalaska Island. And then just to the north there, the Pribilofs in a zone of IFR. Marginal VFR from there northward to the Seward Peninsula. And marginal VFR right along the Arctic coast. Not too bad here over the northern interior. Mostly VFR for the North Slope. A little bit of marginal stuff for the Brooks Range, but pretty good there southward to the Alaska Range, and then mostly marginal over south central Alaska and the Copper River Basin. And Cook Inlet, though, down into the Barren Islands, VFR, Kodiak marginal, and the Panhandle, marginal VFR with some IFR out along the coast. And Atufic and Adigan, looking VFR for the day on Saturday. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, rainy, pretty marginal, as well as windy, especially on the southern approach. And Isabel, lowest conditions, southern entrance, marginal VFR. And same thing from Intesta, marginal VFR, but north side should be VFR. Tanita, occasionally marginal, and mostly IFR for Portage, as well as Chilkoot and White. Freezing levels here, about 8,000 to 10,000 feet over the southeast coast. And cold pool here shifting eastward into the coastline, or actually over the southeast Bering Sea, or about 4,000 feet. And then roughly about 6,000 to 10,000 feet over the eastern Aleutians. And icing, three areas of considerable moderate rime icing. The first one here in the Gulf of Alaska up to the North Gulf Coast, southern Prince William Sound. Another one from Cook Inlet extending northeastward there across the Kuskokwim Valley, right on up close to the Yukon River. And the third one out here just really affecting the St. Matthew Island area. And from there, looking at the jet stream, here's that upper level low with the cold air aloft out there, and westerly winds 100 knots right across the eastern Aleutians there. South winds 90 knots there just north of Bristol Bay. And for the 9,000 foot wind flow, same thing, upper low right along the southwest coast here. And winds sweeping around that center anywhere from 40 to 50 knots here, strongest over the southeastern Bering Sea. And then south to north flow, 45 to 50 knots over the interior. And at 3,000 feet, 60 knot winds, a narrow band here right along the North Gulf Coast area. 40 knots off the north coast of the Panhandle. 40 knots out of the west-northwest for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. 50 knots there over the southeast Bering Sea, and then becoming north at about 40 knots, staying west to St. Lawrence Island. And for the turbulence, look for considerable moderate turbulence for the western Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Fox Islands. And up here with kind of a narrow band of considerable turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence here for northern Cook Inlet, Turnagain Arm, Madanuska Valley, and Knik Arm area along the North Gulf Coast to the north coast of the Panhandle.